Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here, and my guest today is Joe Hobbs from Curly Joe Creations. Hi, Joe.
Hi there. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So I saw your account on Instagram, and it immediately grabbed my attention just because you felting animals, and they so realistic, like they look like real thing. And especially some posts of yours, you showed the picture of the animal that you're making and then the animal, and I can't tell them apart. They look so much alike.
You.
But from what you told me, you started pretty recently, right?
That's right. I picked up my first needle Christmas 2018. I was making rag dolls actually before that. I've always been into creativity, and I've painted ceramics. I've been into house decor, and I was actually originally showing interest in rag dolls because I was actually restoring a rag doll that was bought by my parents when I was a little girl, and my dad sadly had passed away that year, and I decided that I wanted to just refresh her a bit. And I then suddenly decided that I would start making my own rag dolls, and I'd been doing those a couple of years, and then I suddenly thought, why don't I make a dog to go with my rag dolls? And I thought, oh, I need some sort of textile dog that would go with them. And so I just put textile dog into Pinterest, and up popped needle felting. And I'd never even heard of needle felting. I had no idea what it was. And I discovered an amazing artist called Domenica Moore Gordon. You can find her on Instagram as well. And she just had made these cute dogs out of needle felting, and I just was captivated by it. So I just started to research a little bit, and I have to say I'm not very patient, so I'm just one for having a go. So I popped down to my local haberdashery, and they happened to have some needles and some wool, and I had a little foam mat which I thought would protect me from stabbing myself in the knee, and I just had a go, and I created this little dog which doesn't look particularly realistic, but you know, I just gave it a go, and I have to say, since that point I have not stopped needle felting. I've just practiced and practiced, and very, very quickly I decided that I wanted to go for a more realistic look rather than a sort of cartoony type style, which I know some people like that style as well, but I wanted to go for realistic.
Well, what was that process like? Like, did you have to sketch them first and then try to achieve the same likeness? Like, how do you get that likeness?
Yeah, I think actually what I found is studying the sort of anatomy of animals has really helped, because when I look back at that first little cartoon type style dog, I can see that there wasn't a lot of definition to his body. And I learned that if I looked more at the muscle tone of animals, I was particularly working with sort of looking at dogs to begin with, and then I sort of progressed on to other animals. But I found that even if you sort of just noted the sort of muscle tone in their front legs or their underbelly, it started to look more real. And I think that's what's made the difference, is to study, you know, the actual animal that I'm making.
Right. What's the most difficult part to achieve that likeness?
Oh gosh, I think probably making sure that you blend the colours properly. I guess stepping back a little bit before that might be making sure that you've got the core body right. So just as I was saying about the muscle tone, if you're putting wool on top of a body that doesn't look very firm, felted firm with that muscle tone, whatever colour you put on it, I guess, isn't going to look real. So that would be the first thing, would be to make sure you've got the core body firm and having that definition of muscle tone, and then the top coat blending is key. And I think I found very quickly that if you buy cheap wool, it's often sort of a bit artificial in its colour looking, where it's been dyed. So I tend to blend my own colours from as natural colours that I can find, and then I use hand carders and actually, or even blend it together with my fingers. That makes a big difference.
Well, let me tell you, my only experience with felting is one class that I took at Rhinebeck at the Yarn Festival, and we made a little penguin, and I wish I had it. I couldn't find it before this interview, but it was like the most basic kind of thing, and it took me 3 hours to make.
Yeah.
Do you have hard time stopping yourself playing with that creation that you make? Like, how do you know when enough is enough?
To stop.
When to stop?
Yes. I'm terrible. I am a bit of a perfectionist. So, you know, quite often actually, I will photograph it as I go along, because I always post on my social media sort of progress pictures, which I think people quite enjoy watching that process. And I'll often look back, and I think when I'm looking at it that it looks perfect, and then I take a picture of it, and then I think, oh, you know, that ear isn't quite right, or the tilt of that head isn't quite there, or the nose isn't quite. I'm quite picky, so I will spend time just I guess observing it to make sure that I'm happy with that final product. But there is a fine line of that's enough. You know, you have to just step back and say, no, I've finished.
I mean, I saw one of your reels where there is basically like a body of the dog already ready, lying there, and you working on the paws and the hand of the dog, right? And you felting it, stabbing it with the needle, and then you stop and you go to the eye and you start passing with the fur around the eye. Like, do you find yourself doing it all the time? Like working on one part, trying to concentrate?
Yeah, all the time, because I will glance, especially as you say, at the face. And it's amazing actually, just tweaking with your needle, the finest part of fur around the eye can make a big difference to the overall look. So yes, I'm forever fiddling, you know, but you have to be happy with it. And I think, you know, people are actually paying me, commissioning me to make their pet, and I want that to be the very best product that I can give them. I want them to love and adore what they've got. So that's really, really important to me. I don't like rushing. You know, each commission can take many hours to create, but that doesn't matter, because I want it to be right in the end.
So, like, at what point did it become a business?
So, as I say, I started felting at Christmas 18, and I made a few dogs then, just having a go. And then in the February of 2019, so just the very beginning, I had made a couple of sausage dogs, and a friend fell in love with them, and she said, can I buy them? And I was absolutely blown away that she wanted them. And she had those, and then the commissions just started to roll in, and very quickly I found that I was selling them globally, and my main sort of custom base actually comes from America. So I sell a lot in America, obviously in the UK I sell, and Hong Kong I sell quite a lot there, but they've even gone as far as Ecuador and Australia, so they've gone all over the world, which has been fantastic.
Do you ever have hard time pricing them?
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting time, hasn't it? You know, the last couple of years through the pandemic. If I think back to the beginning, obviously I was brand new to it. I was sort of working out how long they'd taken me and what would be an appropriate price. I spoke to a couple of Instagram friends that were also felters that advised me along the way. And the thing with needle felting is that to sculpt the wool in the first place takes hours and hours. There are no quick fixes when it comes to sculpting with wool. So you can't sort of speed the process along. And so if you're going to sort of charge by the hour, you know, it's quite difficult to actually get to the point where you are, you know, being paid well for your time rather than earning minimum wage. I think that there's quite a balance there. That's quite difficult.
Do you feel like you have to educate the customers on the process to help you sell?
Yes, I think that's quite key. Most people don't even hesitate, and they understand the sort of hours of creating that goes behind a finished article, and they understand. Very, very occasionally, and not for a long time, have I had anyone say, wow, that's loads of money. I think if people are buying from an artist, they understand that things take time. And sometimes people say, oh, sadly, that's out of my price range, and they totally understand. But I think, you know, as an artist, you know, you can't undersell yourself. Otherwise, you'll never get anywhere with it.
Right. Well, when you put your Instagram videos, like you have a lot of videos where you show the process of how you work. Like, was that by design? How did you grow your Instagram, and how did you decide what you're gonna post, how often you're gonna post? What's your relationship with Instagram?
Oh, wow. Gosh, that's been a journey. So I started that page originally when I started to make my rag dolls, and I had 30 followers, and most of them were friends and family. And then in that 2019, where I decided that actually felting was going to be my thing, as much as I love rag dolls, I've only got a limited amount of time. And I think I very quickly found that I'd hit a niche market with animals and pets. You know, as lovely as rag dolls are, that, you know, that it's quite a sort of limited audience there. But pets, I found, suddenly it grew and grew and grew. I had no idea that that was going to be the case. And you know, now, as you can see, I'm nearly on 15,000 followers, and a lot of those are creative people, but a lot of them are animal lovers as well. And you know, so I've got sort of two markets that I'm feeding to. I've always loved creativity, and I'm always interested in how people learn and get the end results that they show. So I always thought it would be fun to show some of that process as I went along. So and people often said, oh wow, how did you make that paw, or how do you create that painted eye? And so I've always loved to sort of show a little bit here and there as I go along.
Well, I saw today in your stories you were asking your followers to like give you their opinions on what would be a good beginner piece, right? And you had like 4 different animals there to choose from, and
yeah,
you were asked, like, polling their opinions. Is that the ambition? Do you want to open a school and teach everybody how to felt?
Yeah, so this year, I've always said I have 2 jobs. I'm a nursery manager in my other life, and I have Curly Joe Creation going alongside. And so I've always said, I just can't manage to do both, especially as I mentioned in the pandemic. I think, you know, life has been quite challenging to manage everything and do that. But I've had so many people ask me over the last few years if I would do tutorials, and I've always batted them away, saying I can't manage it. But I really, really would like to go down that route. And I have been approached by an amazing craft company who they film tutorials and they sell them because they're beautifully filmed. so I'm excited to be part of that. We're just in negotiations about which animals that we're going to start with for beginner ideas. So that's why I was asking today, you know, which one would you like to go for? I know that dogs are everybody's favourite, so I thought that would be quite a nice one to start with, but obviously it's got to be achievable in a short space of time. If you've never felted before, you might be put off by the fact that something could take you 50 hours. And so, you know, I wanted it, like you were saying, your penguin took a couple of hours. You want it to not put somebody off, because not everybody's as patient to get to the end result. And so, yeah, that's where that came from.
Well, do you feel like it's different set of skills between the fact that you know how to make it to teach somebody how to make it? Like, are you nervous about that at all?
I so am. I so am, because when I started, I said to you at the beginning, I'm quite an impatient person, and I didn't ever watch any tutorials. I'm a real give it a go person. You could say have a stab at it would be a good pun to use. I was just desperate to have a go, even if I made mistakes along the way. And I think quite early on, I was thinking, gosh, this wool is not working well. And when I sort of looked a little bit more at sort of written articles about felting, I discovered that actually I was using the wrong wool for that particular task. I was trying to make a core body using merino wool. I discovered very quickly I was going to be there for a very, very long time because it doesn't stab in quick enough, and I needed to have core sort of batting wool that would carded wool that would easily felt to make that body, and also it'd be quite expensive to try and create the whole thing in merino. So I kind of learned along the way, thinking, oh gosh. So with thinking about tutorials that I'm going to be doing, I'm thinking, what was it, what were the mistakes I made, and how could I quickly solve them for somebody else, and really clearly explain which wool you need to start with to make your core body, and which wools are better for flat felting and which are better for fur planting. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to explain all those steps clearly. I think, as you say, when you're doing it yourself, you don't even think about it. So I got to then get in my mind, step by step, explaining this is the process I'm doing now. So that's going to be a learning curve.
Well, I mean, it's also like I find myself in a similar sort of situation with knitting, because I also started knitting in 2018, and where like I wasn't afraid of any techniques, and I jumped right in and I learned as I was going. On the other hand, when I'm still discovering that I'm doing some things wrong that I was sure I totally mastered, right? So yeah, there is always this hesitation that, yes, on one hand, I can make some difficult projects. On the other hand, what do I know? I just started. Do you get this imposter syndrome that like you are still new artist and there are like people
all the
doing
time?
It?
Yeah, I often say on my Instagram, I'm still learning. You know, please don't see me as the master of this. I really am learning, and I think if you always have that mindset, that's really good, because we do learn new things all the time. We're all learning new techniques. Because I haven't spent hours and hours and hours studying people's tutorials, you know, I am still learning as I go along, but I'm also not sort of boxing myself in. I read an interesting comment that an artist said the other day. She'd never had any formal training. She didn't have any formal qualifications, but her art was amazing because of it, because she'd never been limited by that, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. You know, I'm experimenting as I go along, and if there are things that don't quite work, I quickly pick them up and think, oh, I won't use that again. You know, I'll learn another way. But I think you also open up a door that might think, do you know what, you're not supposed to do that, but actually it's worked really well.
Right. Well, talking about limiting factors, you have commissions, right? So when you have a commission, you sort of under time pressure to finish it in a reasonable amount of time and to get the next commission because it's business. What about your artistic inspirations? Like, what about doing something that tickles your fancy, doing an animal or creating something outside of what people expect from curly jaw creations?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. One of my Instagram felting friends said to me very early on about commissions, she said, always carve yourself out some time for you and do something as an artist that you would like to do, because you can lose your creativity through commissions. Now, I guess there's two views that I have on that. One, every commission I do tends to be a different breed of dog or type of animal. So I'm always stretched in that way. So it might be a cockapoo I'm making. It might be I can't think of another dog breed now, a Labrador, a poodle, whatever it is that I'm making, that's a different breed. If I'm making the same breed again, they're always different. Or the customer would like a different pose, so that's really good. But there is an element of sometimes you just want to stretch yourself a little bit and do something different. So I always carefully time my commissions so that I'm not panicking myself and I'm not rushing them and they're all bumping into each other. You have to be careful to do that, otherwise I think you do take the joy out of it if you're time pressured. That's really key. But last summer, I had a go at making humans, which was a completely curveball for Curly Joe creation. I have never done that before. And in fact, I've got one here. Here's Frida. That was a whole new thing for me to actually sculpt her face. And I just so loved it. In fact, I loved it so much I didn't sell her. So I rarely keep them, but I did love the process of learning how to do her. And I did a few other ladies in bikinis that were such fun to do. I don't have time to always do different things, but I love to pop them in when I can, and the donkeys was one of those, and that has taken off completely. People do love my donkeys, and they were self-chosen.
Right. Well, talking about ladies in bikinis, they weren't what you would call conventional beauties, like the, size 0 kind of ladies. They were like voluptuous,
yes,
comfortable in their own bodies ladies. Were you talking, like, were you making a statement with them through that?
Not particularly. I just have always loved Hilda. She was a 50s icon, artist icon, and the pictures of her are such fun. I love the look of her in her bikinis with her big bust and her big bottom, and I thought how wonderful. Felt would definitely lend itself to having that more shapely body, and she just looks happy and fun, and I just thought I would love to actually make a felt in honor of her and that amazing artist. So all credit to him, because it was just such fun. And so he was that artist was my inspiration to make Hilda. And then I made, as you say, a couple more because she was snapped up immediately, which was really lovely. I'd love to do some more of those when I get time.
Well, talking about having time, right? If time was of no consequence, if you had all the time in the world, or if you could take like a couple years off and just do what you please, what would that be? Like, do you have some dreams, some like plans, something that you're thinking about but just don't have time?
Obviously, as I mentioned before, the tutorials would be one thing that I would love to grow more, and I am going to do that. In hopefully, certainly by the end of the year, I'm hoping that we'll be off the ground with those. If I was going to do some projects, I love hooved animals. Hooved animals are just, I think they're my favourite to do. So I love to explore more with my donkeys. There's so many different donkeys that I'd love to make, but I'd also love to create zebra. A zebra is definitely on my list for next year, definitely. And if I could squeeze it in this year, I would do it this year. You never know, keep your eye out. In fact, there's even an animal called a zonkey, which is a crossbreed from a zebra and a donkey. So I would love to have a go at that. Yeah, I mean, the list of animals is endless that I would love to have a go at. Maybe Highland cow, anything that's sort of shaggy is quite a nice animal to create. You know, with the big horns and the shaggy fur and the hooves. That would be an amazing a thing to create. And the other thing that I've just started to have a little look at, and this is not for now because I definitely can't fit it in, but is wet felting. I had a go at wet felting last year because I made a big elephant, one of my biggest makes actually, and I did a wet felt coat for that elephant, and it was a great experience. And I've been looking at a couple of artists who make things like vases from wet felting, and I'm a bit fascinated by that. I would love to have a look at that.
I actually just recently interviewed Natasha Smart Textiles. She's on Instagram. She's also from UK, and she does some amazing stuff with wet felting. So
I'm going to check her out, definitely.
Well, talking of wet things, one of my favorite things that I saw on your Instagram was an octopus. Could you tell me the story behind that?
Yeah, wow. And you know, that octopus has just been rehomed in America. So that's where she resides now. Oh my goodness. So I have a little bit of a thing about octopus. My husband actually hated it. he was so pleased when she sold because he was like, I don't need her hanging around in the house anymore. But I watched a documentary called My Octopus Teacher, which you can find on Netflix.
I just watched it like a couple of days.
Yeah, you may have seen it. Oh, it's absolutely captivating. And I've seen other documentaries on octopus. I'm always fascinated by them. When I saw that program, I just thought I have to make one. And I always research when I'm interested in looking at an animal. As I said to you, I love to study them closely before I work on them. And I also look at felted versions as well, because I want to see what's gone before, what have other artists created. And I've found some fantastic felted ones. But I just felt that I wanted to do something slightly different. I didn't really want it to look like wool. I wanted it to look like more, because I'm into realistic looking animals, I wanted it not to look furry. So I started to sort of experiment. I had used felted wax before, so I knew that I might use that a little bit. But I was also concerned that if that heated up, it might just all melt into a blob on the floor. So I did a little bit more research into coating wool. I have used PVA glue before. I used that on part of the elephant when I was making the elephant. And that again creates quite a nice sort of finish, a sort of a less frizzy sort of finish. But then I found something called Powertex, which is like a liquid. It looks like white glue, and you paint it on, and then it paints hard and quite shiny. Again, another Instagram artist friend, she directed me to use that. I have to say, Instagram is a fantastic place for networking, and you find other artists that you make friends with. And I feel like I know them properly as friends. You know, we all help each other out and encourage each other, it's just a lovely network. So if you are on Instagram, I encourage you to chat to other like-minded people on there. So anyway, so I felted her first, the core body, the octopus, then I covered her with merino, and then I took many, many hours covering all the suckers underneath that you'll have seen on there. That took hours and hours and hours, but I was really, really pleased with the result in the end. I think you'll see there's reels of me using hair dryers and everything to dry her off. But I was really pleased with the result in the end. And it was just exploring again. She may be unique, however, because I'm not sure that I can go back there again on the suckers. She took so many hours to create. So I don't know, she may be the one and only.
Do you ever feel sad letting go your creations?
Yeah, I do. I get very attached to them, actually. The donkeys especially. There were a couple of donkeys that I made recently. They've gone to live in Ireland. There's a brown and white donkey. You may have seen me make him. Oh, I was really sad to see them go. I am a donkey lover, I have to say. And then this guy here, I said that my husband didn't like the octopus. He was very happy to see her go, but he didn't want the basset hound to go because actually he'd like a basset hound. And I said, you can't have one. This is the nearest one you can have. So he actually lives in our house. So I've never let him go. And I just showed you Frida. Yeah, she just lives here. So I don't keep too many, but there are a couple. But once they're gone, you're kind of on to the next one. I always say my favourite creation is the one I'm working on. And then I say goodbye to them and I'm excited about the next one I'm making.
Well, what are you making now? What are you working on now?
Well, I've just finished this trio. Here is Canyon, his name is. He's a Labradoodle. And then there's Cody the Poodle, and I can hold them all for you. These are a triple commission. And Zoe, the chocolate Labrador, she's quite dark. I don't know whether you can make her out. So those three are just going off again to America. And then today, after I finish with you, I'll be starting on my next dog commission, which is a Jack Russell. So that's going to be fun. And also I've got another double commission of Labradoodles that I'm going to be working on. It's non-stop commissions at the moment. I'm quite busy with those. But actually in a few weeks, I've got another first coming up. I've got a rooster.
Oh, that's...
Yeah. He's going to go off to America. He's part of a triple commission. I seem to be getting a lot of triples and doubles at the moment. So that's two dogs and a rooster, or a cockerel as we call them in the UK. So I've not made feathers before, so I will definitely be sharing that process. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to learn.
Well, what's your wool stash looks like? Like, do you have colors for the rooster? Because most of the dogs and donkeys, it's like more neutrals.
Yeah, so I always ask my customers to send me photos in advance so that I can order any wool colours that I need. And interestingly, that has been on my mind because I'm just awaiting photographs to see what colours I need. Because as you say, most of my creations are neutral dog colours. So I think I'm definitely going to have to invest in some brighter colours. It will be interesting to see what I need. And I'm looking at your wool stash behind you, thinking, wow, that looks amazing.
I have a few, colors to choose from. It's so funny because
mine are very brown and beige and black.
I was knitting this shawl. It was a test knit for Julie Knits in Paris. And at the very end, I ran out of yarn for the very last row. And I ordered a new one, but the dye lots didn't match. So if you look at it, the edging is a little brighter than the actual purple on the shawl. And my husband was telling me, I don't understand, you have so much yarn, can't you just find that color? So I brought him to the wall and I was like, okay, help me find it, And then he was
like, it looks beautiful anyway. It looks stunning.
Thank you. Well, talking of husbands, how supportive is your husband of your new hobby in general? Like, just because it takes so much of your time, so much play, so much space, and all your time spent on Instagram and all of that. How does he deal with you?
Oh, do you know, it's funny because he was actually talking to me about that yesterday and asking me, he said, do you post every day on Instagram? And I said, yeah, actually, I would say 99% of the time I post every day. Very, very occasionally I miss a day. I just give myself a rest. But I don't feel pressured by that. I try to be organized and think ahead about what I'm posting. And I'm learning to do reels quite quickly now. So I'm that sort of it doesn't take so long now. But he is 100% supportive of me. I do laugh because sometimes he says, oh, more fluffy things sitting on the sideboard, you know, because if I'm waiting to ship them, they can build up a little bit. So he's always saying, when are you shipping that one? Or when are you shipping this one? So he can have a bit more space. But he's really, really encouraging of what I've done, so supportive, and he's my chief filmmaker, actually. So when you see me stabbing, he's the man behind the camera. So I couldn't do all those sort of moving shots without him. So I have to grovel and you know, ask him, can you come and do a film for me? Which he does always. So that's lovely.
Do you bounce ideas of him, of like what you're thinking of doing, of like what you're thinking of?
Yeah, often I sort of say, oh, what do you think? Funnily enough, when I said, what do you think I'm going to make an octopus, he said, why would you do that? But he was wrong, because everybody seemed to love her and she was snapped up. So there you go. He's happy now that she's been bought.
I think she was like absolutely amazing, because like when I was like zooming in and looking at all those little suckers, and I mean, besides the fact that she looked superbly realistic, it just you have to appreciate the amount of work that went into it.
Yeah.
Are you like ever critical of your work? Like, do you ever look at it and you think, no, I could have done better?
Yeah. Oh, I'm my own worst enemy, and I will often say to my husband, Kim, what do you think about this? And he'll say, oh, it's amazing, you know, it's amazing. And I say, no, I don't know it's amazing. It's just not right. Or I will often look at something. Like I was saying, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. A few months back, I wasn't happy with the way a dog's eyes were sitting. And I just kept glancing back thinking, I can't rest with that. I actually took its face off. I took its whole face off and moved the eyes just like a millimetre, half a millimetre, and it made all the difference. And I was much, much happier with it. So I am critical, and I have an image in my mind of how something's going to look, and you know, that's how I want it to be. And if it isn't like that, I'm not impressed, and I keep going. And then, as you say, you have to get to that point where you say enough's enough, put it down.
Well, if somebody like 1,000 years from now found one of the pieces, which one would you want them to find?
Oh goodness, what a question. I still think it has to be donkeys. Maybe it's because I just want a donkey. if I could do anything, oh, you asked me that question, didn't you? If I could do anything, I had some time, I'd actually have a field with a donkey in it. My sister has a horse, and I always say to her, can't you get a donkey to go with the horse to keep it? They're often companions, aren't they? I'd have the donkey.
You feel like felting allows you to sort of be the little girl, like bring that inner child out, like play with the dolls, play with your materials?
It's like having miniature things around, isn't it? I think all little girls love miniature things. A while ago, I actually purchased a doll's house on eBay. I just love miniature things, and I did actually make a miniature fox terrier. I do love fox terriers. I would say they're my favourite dog breed to make. I have a soft spot for vintage fox terrier, and I made a tiny fox terrier about an inch big, and I made him out of polymer clay, and then I used my felting wool and I obviously couldn't needle felt it in because it's hard, but I glued the wool on to go in the doll's house, and I'm renovating this doll's house, although I've run out of time at the moment. I can't, it's going to be a long-term project, that one is, but I wanted a dog to go in the house. So maybe that's my childhood bit, with a miniature dog going in there.
Well, talking about sizes, right? What's the largest piece you ever made?
So I think it would be the elephant. The elephant was about 12 inches high and 12 inches long. The brown and white donkey, which I made a couple of months back, he was 12 inches long. So that's quite a big make. And obviously, to stab all those layers of wool, you can't get a whole bunch of wool and then start stabbing it. It's so floofy that it won't, you'd be there forever. So you have to do layer by layer by layer. I often use a multi-needle tool that has 3 needles in it. You can get them online. A company called Clover sells them online, and they're really good. They speed up your process, and I know some people even use, there's electric needle felting machines. I don't fancy that because it doesn't really feel properly handmade to me, and I don't think they're fantastic. So I tend to do them by hand. But obviously that they do take a long time, but I do actually quite like working on big things. You know, you might think, oh, small is easy, but small isn't easy. It's much more fiddly, and needle felting needles are vicious. And when you're learning, you will stab yourself hundreds and hundreds of times. The better you get, the better practiced you learn not to stab straight through and out the other side and into your finger. You need, obviously, not to put your hands behind what you're creating. You use your mat. You learn that as you go along. But I would say working on bigger things, although they take longer, they are easier to work on.
Well, I'm so glad you agreed to be my guest today. I love watching your creative process. I hope you're gonna create those tutorials, because I would be interested in learning more about it. I found it like really fun. And it sounds like, you know, a fairy tale kind of life. You get to play, create all those things, you know, making something out of nothing sounds like almost like a miracle.
Oh, I love it. I do. I absolutely love it. And I would recommend anybody give it a go. It's very therapeutic. You know, you can just forget what's going on in this crazy busy time and just sit down and just, let those problems melt away, really, while you just be creative. I would fully recommend it, but be warned, because it's totally addictive.
Well, if somebody had asked you for advice, if they thought of going into handmade business and turning it into a business, what would be your advice?
Oh, wow. Well, do you know, I actually think, I know a lot of people want to avoid social media, but social media has really been my friend as far as growing your business. I would have never been able to sell globally had it not been for Instagram. I am on Facebook as well, but, you know, my lifestyle would not have allowed me to go and do craft fairs. You know, I have a very busy day job managing a nursery. I couldn't have then gone at weekends and spent hours and hours and hours at a craft fair only to sell 2 pieces of work when you've spent all day there from the crack of dawn. I couldn't have done that. So social media definitely would be the way to go, and network on there, meet people, get advice. That's really excellent. Practice. And I would say since Christmas 2018, I don't think there's been hardly a day where I haven't needle felted. I take it on holiday. I take it when I go and look after my grandchildren. Everywhere I go, I always find some time to practice. And certainly if you're looking to go down that realistic route, you know, and you're thinking you would like to go into pet commissions, I think the realistic route, people quite like a realistic sculpture of their pet. That's, you know, that's always a niche market. There's lots of us doing it, but I think there's room for more. Everybody's different. Every artist that I follow, I know their work. So, you know, my work will be different from your work to the next person's work. You always seem to have a style. So I think there's room for many more of us.
Right. Well, because I'm going to put all the links to you so people can find you on Facebook, on Instagram, on your website, and hopefully give you a follow and maybe commission something.
Thank you. That'd be amazing.
Thanks so much, Jo, for being my guest today. I really love talking to you.
Thank you so much. It's been great fun.
Thank you.